welcome to today's share class. We're so happy that you're joining us. I feel like singing. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas because this is for our next couple of holiday share classes. And I truly was trying to come up with a couple of recipes to share with you all that would soon become your family favorites, but also maybe have you step outside the box just a little bit. And so I narrowed it down to a couple of recipes that I'll share over the coming weeks. But today we are going to be making orange spice rolls. Now most people equate cinnamon rolls around holiday time and they make those up, but a lot of people have never made orange rolls. And so the way we make orange rolls in our house is very similar if you've ever had orange spice tea. It's delicious, and it's the same with these orange spice cinnamon rolls. And so that's what we're going to be making today. It's very simple ingredients. You're going to have, and we'll put the ingredients list up and of course share the recipe with you all. And we're going to have yeast and some warm water and flour and lots of oranges we're going to be using today, some sugar and salt and eggs and some butter. And that's what will get us started, and then we'll have a yummy filling on the inside and then some frosting that we'll be sharing. I'm going to take you from start to finish on how to make delicious orange spice rolls. So let's get started. The first thing that you usually start with when you're making any type of sweet dough or roll is your yeast. So I have a packet of yeast in here, which is the equivalent of 2 teaspoons, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. So we'll just add that. I'm using a standard electric mixer today. If you guys don't have one, don't worry about it. You can use a bowl and a whisk, or you can just use a bowl with a spoon or an electric hand mixer. Either way works. So I've added that packet of yeast to this, and now I'm gonna go grab some warm water. And the most important thing is when you're dealing with yeast is not to put too hot of water in. If it's too hot to the touch, it will kill the yeast. So that's the only trick. You'd rather have it on the cooler side than the too hot side. So let me just go grab some warm water. Okay, so now I'm back with a 1/2 cup of warm water, and we're just gonna add that over top of our yeast. And you can stir it around just to get it mixed up if it's splashed up on the sides, your yeast. Stir it around, and we're just gonna let that sit there for a second. And then the next thing we're gonna use are some oranges. We're just gonna need one for now to start us off with. I wish I could juggle. Otherwise I'd be showing you how to juggle, and I'm obviously not a juggler. My kids all are, but for some reason I'm not. But every time you see them, that's what I think of, juggling, so it's kind of funny. We are gonna zest 1 orange up, and you guys, I've shared this tool with you. It's a fine grater, and I highly recommend this. This is my all-time favorite tool in the kitchen. I use it for lemons, oranges, anything you can think of, limes, and it's just a great tool to have to zest up. So we're just going to zest this orange, and you can do it right over the bowl. All right. So let's zest up this orange. And you know, another reason that I chose this recipe is I am all about using things like cinnamon and oranges that just make your house smell so good. And on a Saturday morning during holiday time, This is the perfect scent to have going throughout the house. I talk about it all the time. It's the best aromatherapy. It is just so fun, and it is just one of those happy things. Makes you happy being in the kitchen. All right, and it just takes a second to get all the zest off. The most important thing is you don't over zest and get down into the white of the pith area, because that's where it becomes bitter. The outer dark orange color is what we're aiming to take off. And that adds such a great flavor. I mean, anytime that a recipe calls for any type of citrus, adding the zest is just an additional punch of flavor that I use every single time in a recipe, and I believe that it just brightens the whole dish, whatever it is that you're making, and makes it all the better. All right, there we go. I think we have most of it here. There we go. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we're done zesting that orange. So the next thing we need to do is we need to squeeze a ½ cup of orange juice. And so I just cut this in half, and you can use any type of squeezer. You can hand squeeze it. I have this one. My son got it for me, so I try to incorporate it into my daily routine as much as possible. And just kind of fun to use. But you can hand squeeze it too. You know, I do not buy orange juice at the store, and I'd highly recommend you hand squeezing the juice for this. It really does taste different. Years ago, when my kids were super little, I kind of followed the trend of, buying little juice boxes and different things. And what I noticed, and this is just from my own personal experience, so I thought I'd just share it, is that the more juice boxes they drank, I found that they got sick more often. And you guys, want to know something? The minute I stopped having juice in my house that you bought from the store, they stopped getting sick. And I don't know if that will help anyone else, but I just thought I'd share it. I don't know if it's true at all, but it certainly helped our family. And so that's why I have typically always dealt with fresh, whole ingredients. One of our kids, when he was younger, and this is, I'll just interrupt my story real quick. You might need 2 to 3 oranges to squeeze a ½ cup. So what I do for this recipe is I always just buy a bag of oranges. That tends to make sure that you have enough. But yeah, one of our kids was, when he was 18 months old, he got super sick and was put in the hospital. And he was put in a bubble, essentially, and the infectious diseases department came up and started asking us tons of questions about, what products we have in our home, what chemicals are we using, all these different things. And all because of that experience, it really changed my outlook on what we use in our home. And that's why I just went to whole fruits, vegetables, and try to be all natural with everything else. So we're aiming for ½ cup. I think I need to do just a little bit more. Yep, I need about 1/4 cup more. Those all cleaned out. Oh, they smell so good. And we'll just do one more. So it looks like it took us about 3 oranges to get to ½ cup. And certainly, if you want, go get a carton of orange juice and use that. It's just, like I said, not something we have on hand. And so you do not have to go to the trouble of hand squeezing this. But I thought I would share it because If you've never had freshly squeezed orange juice, it is a game changer. So, so good. My daughter goes to school out in California, and she said one of her favorite things her very first year out there was the fresh squeezed orange juice. We're getting close. Here, this should be my last one. All right, let's see what we've got here. And it is full of, there we go, drain some of that off there. The pulp catches here in the center. That's why I like this one so much. There we go. Let me just double check that. Yep, perfect. Half of a cup right there. So let me just set this off to the side real quick. Okay, so now we have our half of a cup of freshly squeezed orange juice, so we're just gonna add that in here. And then the next thing you're gonna need is 1/4 of a cup of sugar. So let me grab that here. Got the 1/4 of a cup. And then we want a dash of salt. So I have 1 teaspoon of salt that we'll add to that. All right, so then you're gonna wanna add in 1 egg. There we go. And then you'll want 2 tablespoons of butter. And make sure it's room temperature. It makes it a little bit easier to mix, especially if you're doing it by hand. When you have an electric mixer, you can just mix it a little longer to get it to come down to a smoother consistency. So we're just going to whip that up just a little bit here. And then we want to add in 1.5 cups of flour. So there we go. And there's 1. And then we want 1/2 cup right there. And we'll just mix that around until that butter is all mixed in along with the flour and egg. Like I told you guys, it just smells so good. Okay, so you're just gonna wanna mix that until it's super smooth and everything's combined in there. And then you're just gonna add in another 1.5 cups about of flour. And we're looking for a slightly sticky dough. There's 1 cup. And then we'll do another 1/2 here. Perfect. We don't want the dough too sticky, so you can always add a little bit more flour, but I always err on the side of caution. I'd rather have sticky dough than unsticky dough, because then you can add too much flour and make it a dry dough, and that's what we don't want. Okay. There we go. So you can touch it, and it will be just slightly sticky, and that's okay to keep it that way. So next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna grab some plastic wrap and put that down here. So grab some plastic wrap, and this is just my trick so I don't have to clean up my counters. I lay down this food service film that you buy at any box store. The regular plastic wrap that you buy in the little boxes doesn't work the same way. But I just lay down 2 long sheets, and it just prevents a ton of cleanup at the end. So you just roll up your plastic at the end. So it's one less thing you have to clean up at holiday time. Okay. So we laid out our plastic wrap, so we're all set there. And now let's just take our dough out here. So now we have our batter all set to go. You'll just want to put down just a little bit of flour. Sprinkle that all around on your plastic wrap. And then we can reach in here with our hands, clean off this beater paddle, and then you can dip your hand in flour and then just scrape it out into a pile in the center of your plastic wrap here. And be sure to try to get every little bit of this. Like I said, it's so fun working with scents in the kitchen. I know that if you watched our other share classes, I've talked about it a lot, but it truly is a game changer. It really is a great mood booster when you're cooking to have those fresh scents. All right. Okay, so we'll just want a little bit more flour. We'll sprinkle that over the top, and again, don't use too much flour. Just a little bit, enough to make it, so you can handle it to the touch. And when you press on it, if it doesn't stick to your palms, that's the right amount. So again, err on the side of caution. And we're just gonna knead this. And so when we knead something, you're gonna sprinkle that flour over the top, and then you reach on the top and push in, and then we turn it a quarter turn, fold it in and push down with the palms. Turn it again, quarter turn, fold it in, push it down with the palms, turn it again, quarter turn, push down with the palms. And that's all it is. And after a while, you'll get good that you can look around the room, have a conversation, and you do not even have to look at this because you know the feel. And you'll feel that it's feeling smooth and no longer sticking whatsoever, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And that's exactly what mine feels like right now. So you can just form it into a ball. We'll set that down, and then you'll want to grab a super large bowl, and then I'm just going to reach for my olive oil here. Sprinkle your oil in, and you can use vegetable oil as well. You just want something that will oil this up, your bowl up, so it doesn't stick. So you can use your fingers and just rub that around there. And then what you're gonna do is drop the top side down in and give it a quick spin, and then flip it over, just like this. And you'll give it one more spin so you're coating it with the oil. Just like that. And then I'm gonna wash up my hands and we'll move on. You just wanna cover the top of the bowl, and we're gonna allow this dough to rise. And it needs a good hour to rise. And you wanna make sure it's in a warm place in your house. We talk about putting it in a south-facing room because it's the warmest if you're working in the mornings. Time of day, but you can also proof this in your oven as well. That works. And so I'm just going to go place this in a warm area of my house, and we'll wait an hour, and we'll be back to roll this all up. We are back now. Our dough has doubled in size, so that took about an hour. And so now we're just gonna get ready to roll this out and add the filling to it. So what you wanna do is that our plastic wrap is still out. So we wanna grab some more flour and just sprinkle that out evenly. Not a huge amount, but just enough to coat the surface. So we're gonna grab that dough and place it right in the center. Set our bowl off to the side, and what you're gonna need, you can press this out with your hands, but I like to use a rolling pin, so you can grab a little bit more flour and just rub that all along your rolling pin. And we're shaping it into a rectangle. There we go. And you can see the flecks of orange zest inside of it. Super, super pretty. And typically you're aiming for about 10 inches by 15 inches or so. And it rolls out, you'll see, super, super easily. And I'm not overly precise on how long it is, but one way to measure is to go ahead and grab a 9 by 13 dish, and you can set it up alongside of it just to see the width dimensions. So I'll go grab mine. So like I said, you can grab a 9 by 13 dish and set it down. You know that this dimension is 13, and if you have 2 inches on either side, you're good to go. You can do the same thing and make sure it's a little bit longer as far as the 9 inches go. So you can just eyeball it. And that's the way I do it. Some people will grab a ruler and do that, but when you've made them often enough, you pretty much know the size. And it's a super nice dough. You can just tell it's nice and fluffy, which is so great. All right, so what you're gonna wanna do is make sure you have a stick of butter. All right, so now we're ready to make up our filling. So you're gonna need 1/3 cup of sugar. Put that in. And then you'll wanna grab some cinnamon. And we're gonna be using 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And this is where the spice part comes in to these orange spice cinnamon rolls. So a whole 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. So next is cardamom. We're gonna be adding in just 1/4 teaspoon, just a hint of cardamom. I love the smell of cardamom. It's kind of a sweet and spicy smell. All right, so we've added our cardamom. Now we're gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. Oh, it just smells so good. And I know you guys are gonna probably be like, what are you adding? The next thing we're gonna add is 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And just another hint of spicy. And I know it sounds strange, but I promise it's super good. So go ahead and stir that up all around so it's nicely mixed together. There we go. You're basically creating a sugar spice mixture here. There we go. Okay. So now we can open up our butter, and we are just going to take a spatula and spread this all out. And make sure that you can easily scrape it off your spatula. And that way you know that it's gonna spread super easily across your dough. So you just keep adding a little bit of your butter all the way across until every inch of the dough is covered in butter. I just take a little bit of the butter at a time and spread it across. And you want every inch of the dough coated in butter. There we go. And you know, if it hasn't come to room temperature, you can always melt it very carefully in the microwave in literally 5-second increments. Otherwise it will melt very, very quickly. So I just want to keep watch on it. And our last little tablespoon here we'll get. Make sure we get our edges. And the reason we spread butter on here is it allows the cinnamon spice mixture to adhere to it. Okay, so now we're just going to take our cinnamon spice mixture here. Oh, you can smell it, and it just smells good. It smells like holiday time. So you're just going to sprinkle that all around evenly. I try to do an even amount of spice all the way across here. You can go back through any patches you may have missed. And then the next thing I do is I press down with my hands. And that way you don't have cinnamon sugar flying everywhere when you go to roll it up and cut it. I mean, you'll still have a little bit fall out, but this helps it if you press down. And then I'm just gonna wash up my hands, and then we'll roll this up and begin to cut them. Okay, so hands are all washed up here. We have our 9x13, and I'll just set the rolling pin off to the side. So now all we're gonna do is fold in our roll here, and you're just gonna roll this up into a long log. And you guys are gonna see as you roll this up and just feeling the dough, the light and airy texture of the dough. That's how you know you're gonna get a good roll. So you roll that up into a log, and I like to press the ends of my roll together. That way on the ends, you know how sometimes when you roll it out, the ends are kind of dinky and smaller than the rest of it? Go ahead and push in the sides. That's kind of a trick to rolling out a cinnamon roll. And that way it's super uniform and you're gonna get the same size roll. And then what I typically do is I cut in the center. That way I have 2 even halves. And there's lots of different methods you can do that. I've seen online where they've used floss to cut it. I just use a sharp knife, and this one happens to be a serrated edge. So I've cut it in half, and then I cut each section that each half into a half. Just like that. There we go. And then what I do is I cut each of these sections into thirds. And you just want to try to keep them about the same size. And don't worry if you have to squeeze them a little bit to cut it. We're gonna have to let these rise for just a few minutes after we're done cutting them up, and so everything will go back to normal. And I'm just so excited for you guys to try this, because I know when you smell how good, or you'll smell how good these smell, that you'll be like, oh, these are gonna be some good rolls. Okay, so you can use some nonstick spray and just spray your pan up so you don't have your cinnamon rolls sticking. And then we're just gonna place these out 3 each in each row. So we have 15 of them. And you guys can see that yummy center. Can you see that? That cinnamon spice mixture. There we go. And then we just keep layering it out here. Let me just move this down just a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So we're on our second row here. And I just try to evenly space them as I put them in the 9x13 pan. There we go, and our final row here. Fantastic. There we go. And I will just show you, we have an even looking cinnamon rolls. So you can grab a towel, and we're gonna let these rise. We're just gonna cover them up. Let them rise for at least a half an hour before you put them in the oven, and that gives us time to preheat our oven. So go ahead and set your oven for 375 and go put these in a warm place in your house again for 30 minutes, and then we'll be back to bake them up. As these are rising, we can clean up, and we can go ahead and get out our glaze ingredients and get that all ready to go. So we can take our plastic wrap for now and pick it up at the corners. And there's our super easy cleanup. That's how easy it is. That's why I do it. you don't have a mess anywhere. You might have just a little bit of flour, so we'll just have to wipe that down, but it's not going to be this where you're scrubbing all that flour, and especially if you have tile, it can get in your grout lines, and so this trick will just save you a lot of time. So I'll be back in just a few minutes, and we will talk about the glaze that we're going to put on these rolls. Back now. It's been a half an hour just to let these rolls rise a bit more. So these are all nicely risen, and you just want to place them in your preheated 375-degree oven, and we're going to put them in. I usually set my timer for 25 minutes. It can take up to 30. It's important to check it around the 25-minute mark. If they look to be getting too brown on top, go ahead and lay some tin foil over top. Now, while those cinnamon rolls, orange rolls are going in the oven there, we can go ahead and just get our glaze ingredients ready to go, and then we can whip that up when they come out of the oven. So you're gonna need just a small bowl, a whisk, and of course, more oranges, okay? So what we're gonna start off with is some powdered sugar. And I have a large container here, and it is almost at the bottom. So let's see if I can squeeze out. We're gonna need a cup of powdered sugar. There we go. There's our cup full. Okay, so in a bowl we have a cup of powdered sugar, and we're gonna grab another orange, and we're gonna zest this orange into the powdered sugar. And again, that's just another punch of flavor that gets added to this yummy glaze that goes over the top of the cinnamon rolls. All right. It's been one of our traditions that when it snows, and it's a snow day from school, I'll make up cinnamon rolls or orange rolls. I pick and choose and alternate between the two. But it has made our kids over the years really look forward to snow days. And so that's a fun tradition that you guys might want to do. And then another thing is, I've always liked making these around the holiday times because you can make them in advance, put them in the freezer, pull them out and you can reheat them in the oven. And actually what we love to do is just take them individually and heat them up individually on a plate in the microwave, warm them up, and they're delicious. They're as good as if you made them fresh. And so that's the great thing about making these rolls up, is you can make a bunch up in advance, put them in your freezer, and you are all set to go. And especially if you're having company in town, it's just an easy way to serve something. You can serve fruit alongside it. Bacon is great with it. Here lately, we have come to love thinly sliced butcher bacon that we've been eating, and it is super yummy and it goes well. We always try to pair a protein of some sort when we have something sweet like this for our breakfast, just because that way we don't go into a sugar coma with having a bready type breakfast. But we tend to save this type of stuff for holiday time, and it's not like an everyday thing. So just keep working until you get the zest here pretty much off the orange. All right, I think we got most of it there. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this in half, and we're gonna get as much juice as we can from this. We're gonna need that for our glaze. And typically, you're gonna need 2 to 3 tablespoons of orange juice for the glaze. And again, it's your preference on whether you want to do freshly squeezed or if you just have orange juice in a carton, that'll work as well. But I do think it tastes better freshly squeezed. All right, there's 1/2, and then we'll just finish up here with the second half. Perfect. And I think we'll probably get a good 2 tablespoons from this particular orange. Oh, we're getting close to 1/4 of a cup. That'll get us to closer to the 3 tablespoons. There we go. All right, perfect. So we can set this juice off to the side here. We don't want to mix it up just yet. We'll wait until the cinnamon rolls come out of the oven, and we'll let them sit for just a couple of minutes so they're not piping hot. But then we can quickly take a whisk and pour the orange juice in and whisk this up into a glaze and then drizzle it over top, and we'll be ready to try them out. So I can't wait. We have about 20 more minutes for these to finish up, and we'll be back. So our timer is going off. So let's just take a look. Oh, they are nicely golden brown. You can press the top, will be set. All right, and there we have our absolutely gorgeous orange rolls. And I am telling you guys, the smell of these rolls is absolutely amazing. Oh, absolutely, they're gonna be so good. Okay, so we can set these off to the side for just a few minutes while we finish up our glaze. And I typically like to wait just about 5 minutes or so to let these cool just a bit. Otherwise, they're a little too warm to pour the glaze on. It just kind of runs and it doesn't set. But in the meantime, we have our ingredients ready to go to make this glaze. So we can begin to whisk this up. And I just do a tablespoon at a time and stir it around to combine the sugar and the juice together. And it'll start to look a little clumpy, but keep stirring and it will slowly, as you guys can see, start to come together. And my preference is to have it thicker than too thin. And so you're probably not even going to need all of this orange juice here. So I'm just going to add another teaspoon. And so from here on out, I add a teaspoon at a time. I don't add any more. And you want to see that it looks like a ribbon if you pull up your whisk. So we're at just about the absolute perfect consistency. It feels slightly thick, and so I'm just going to give a dash more. And you'll feel as you stir it that it will just be this super nice consistency. So that is perfect right there. And so what I'm gonna do is grab a spoon, and there's our dog. He was in it before. He always has to be in the video somehow. I think he just heard someone pulling into the garage, and so he had to go running. So you just wanna grab a spoon, and then we're gonna drizzle this over the top in just a second. We're back, and we've let this rest for just a few minutes. I went ahead and gave it 10 minutes to cool down so you can actually touch them, and they're not hot to the touch, so they're just nice and warm. And so we have our glaze here all set to go. So you just want to grab a spoon, stir that around here, and then we're just going to drizzle the glaze across the top. That's all there is to it. Oh my goodness, they smell so good. And I love watching the glaze fall down in between the spirals. You know that it's going to be delicious. And it's just a fun play on, if you've gotten tired of making cinnamon rolls, it's just a fun thing to try. And I promise it just makes everyone happy around holiday time, especially that orange flavor. And what's fun is, you know, like I had said, these are orange spice rolls, but you can have some fun. If you love cranberries, oranges and cranberries go great together, so you can put cranberries in the middle before you roll them up, and that's delicious. You can also put in any kind of nut if you like. And we prefer not to put nuts in for these particular rolls, but you can experiment any way you like. So let's give this a taste and see how these turned out. Look how good that looks. It's nice and airy. You can just tell looking at it. Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering waiting to try this. And I know my youngest is gonna want to try these immediately because he can smell the house right now. So super fun. And like I said, just a nice change from your standard traditional cinnamon roll. So I want to spin this around. I want to get a taste of the spicy side of this and that inner yummy cinnamon filling. What's so nice is the spices that we added, just those 3 or 4 spices that we added, adds just a subtle hint of something different besides the cinnamon. So I think you're really gonna like this. So we just want to wish everyone a very happy holiday as we get into December, and just enjoy the entire month of celebrating with your loved ones. And we'll be back with another recipe that we hope you're going to add to among your favorites. So remember, everyone, take time and share life, love, and food with all your friends and family. I'm Elayne, and we will see you next time.